Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and our first double special in which we are going over The Mandalorian Season 3 Episode 1, Chapter 17, The Apostate, and The Bad Batch Season 2 Episode 11, Metamorphosis. And joining us this week in the pod is Blake, Bryce, and Kirk. So let's get into some Star Wars chat and dive right in.
Another happy landing.
Hello. Hello, Blake.
Hey.
What's up, buddy? We got two friends of ours joining us this week. Is Bryce. Hello, sir.
Hello.
And
what's up?
Kirk. Welcome back, sir.
Hello there.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Good to be back, finally.
Yeah.
I was about to respond with General Kenobi.
Oh.
That happened in a game that happened in a game I was playing the other day. I was playing a game online and someone just, as soon as he answered the game, said hello there. And then there's only 5 people on our team, and 3 out of the 3 people responded with General Kenobi. I was very impressed.
Oh man.
Really?
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you get rid of the other guys that didn't?
One might say most
Just the one guy. Yeah. The one guy that didn't, we just boot him.
need someone else in replacement. Yeah.
You gotta play him the clip from the what is it, Galactic Battlegrounds? Which one is it? This one?
As always.
No, not that one.
You haven't learned anything.
This one.
There it is.
So backstory, that's a little, in Age of Empires, you hit numbers and it does a little voice line. That's from an old Star Wars RTS, and that's supposed to be Obi-Wan. That's the best voice actor going on Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I grabbed a few of them here.
Actor.
I grabbed a few of them here. Yeah. Kirk, check this out. This is Qui-Gon. Knock off Qui-Gon.
There's always a bigger fish.
Oh no, that's nasty. That's like a knockoff of Liam Neeson.
Oh man.
Yeah,
It's a knockoff of a knockoff.
Oh, just wait.
Actually,
just wait. Look at this one. Look at this. some Yoda giggles.
That reminds me, I was at an arcade the other day, and you know how they have those VR things set up where you can go in and you pay $5 and you do a VR experience.
Yeah.
Well, I saw a Star Wars one where you fought Darth Vader, and I couldn't really see it was Darth Vader. I was walking past the ad, but then I heard the worst knockoff Darth Vader voice or James Earl Jones voice that I ever heard, and it was an officially licensed Star Wars thing. I was like, what on earth were they doing? It just did not sound right at all.
Was it in English or was it in a different language?
No, it was in English. It was in English, but it sounded like they just really ran out of the budget in terms of voice acting, and they couldn't use any previous Darth Vader lines. So it was, I took a double take because I genuinely thought it wasn't an actual Star Wars property, but it was.
Dang. Wow.
Just some knockoff thing.
Yeah, it's strange. You'd think that they'd just use original lines and stuff, but I guess they can't use it everywhere.
Well,
Was the VR experience were you Darth Vader in the experience, or a character, or you're just
No, you're actually come to think about it now, it didn't make much sense. You were like a Jedi training on Mustafar with Darth Vader, but you had a blue and a green lightsaber. So yeah, I don't think it really much of it made sense, to be honest. Yeah.
Was this the Vader Immortal
Doesn't
games?
make sense.
No, it was like a really generic. It didn't look like something that's out to the public. It would just look like one of those arcade experience games that had been set up. But like the VR headset was like chained to like a top of like a crane, and you had to put it on. It's all attached and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't look like something I'd seen before. I have to share a photo or something.
Yeah,
This
definitely.
has got me thinking about like what the worst VR experience in Star Wars could be, and I was like, maybe it'd be fun. You enter VR and you're like the frog that Jabba eats in Jabba's palace. You're just like swimming around in a little tank, and then you get eaten by Jabba the Hutt, and then the VR game's over.
Ah,
That's so sad.
But you don't know where you are for a long time. Like there's like a solid 10 minutes. You're just swimming around in like a big bowl and having a good time.
With like
And then you
weird
just get
shapes.
plucked.
You watch the events of Jabba's throne room unfold in that moment, and then it finishes off with you just getting swallowed. Yeah.
All right, you
Great,
just made it
actually.
interesting. Yeah, you just made it really fun.
I just see it all through a really dirty fishbowl.
Yeah, it's all murky and everything.
Yeah, so you can't make anything out.
All right, now you know what? I'm actually kind of on board for this. It'd be kind of fun.
Someone's got to make this experience in Unreal, and then just it's a fan-made project. Someone's got to do it.
The first official Star Wars Escape Pod VR game.
Oh yeah.
Banters are filthy animals. I don't eat filthy animals.
There's
Thank you,
another.
Mace Windu.
Yeah. I don't even remember him saying that. Like I think that's just a line that they
I don't
came up
think
No,
it
with.
it
was.
just makes it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't Mace Windu. That was Waste Mindu.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, exactly. His like twin brother or something.
Like the guy play Mace Windu, walk around like Hollywood's squares to do something.
Yeah. So to our audience tuning in, we do have the YouTube channel up and running. So go and subscribe there. And we're publishing our podcast episodes the next day at 1 p.m. We're doing the YouTube premieres, and so far no one's tuned in. So that'd be great if anyone wanted to check those out. But yeah, people are watching them later. People are catching them later, Blake. We're getting the views later
Well, that's
on.
good.
Yeah,
It wasn't the wasted effort then.
No, the
That was
premieres.
that was a huge undertaking.
Yeah, no, it's a huge undertaking, and glad it's paying off. Lots of people kind of discovering the podcast on YouTube and then subscribing elsewhere, I guess.
That's awesome.
So-
Welcome, friends. One and all.
Yeah. Welcome to Star Wars Escape Pod. Lots of new people on Podbean tuning in, which is great. And for those of you who haven't joined the Discord, links in the description. You can check out the public forums, RSS feeds, get some music in the Star Wars radio channel with DJ Rex. Who's that's a new thing we've been doing. And drop a comment. We love our comments and the 5 stars, so that helps us out a lot. So that'd be great. We're gonna catch up with the Mandalorian season 3, episode 1, which finally hit Disney Plus on Wednesday last week. Which this is chapter 17, called The Apostate, and I do like the fact that they've stuck with that chapter kind of subtitle to it, just because it kind of infers maybe not starting this show at season 3. It's like, yeah, go and check out the previous chapters of this story, and you'll actually get caught up on the thing. So I'll go through the summary here, and then we can all kind of just collaborate over what we like, what we didn't like, any notes that you guys took, whatever, and then we'll do the new rating system, which it'll be Kirk's first time doing the Pablo Pudu points rating system, which we'll explain in just a moment. Yeah,
Sounds exotic.
it's amazing. All right, so the armorer and group of Mandalorians hold a ceremony to induct a young child into the tribe. The ceremony is interrupted when a dinosaur turtle attacks the Mandalorians. They fight back, but are soon overpowered, and Din Djarin arrives, killing the creature with his starfighter, reveals Grogu in the passenger seat, and the armorer confirms that if the mines of Mandalore still exist, that Din Djarin may become a Mandalorian once more, because let's not forget, in the Book of Boba Fett, he was excommunicado because of removing his helmet once upon a time. Din travels to Navarro to meet Greef Karga, who is now the High Magistrate of the planet. He helps Karga stop a group of pirates making a fuss in town about the school, which has been taken over. That used to be Cantina. Karga offers Din Djarin a newly vacated position of Marshal under his command, but Din Djarin refuses, stating that he came to rebuild IG-11 because he needs his help to go and explore Mandalore with him. Din Djarin successfully revives IG-11, but the droid defaults to his original violent programming and tries to kill Grogu in that moment. Din Djarin brings his parts to a group of Anzellan mechanics who tell him that they need a new memory core to fully repair the droid. And as Din Djarin leaves Navarro, the pirate crew led by Vane's superior Gorian Shard attacks his ship, which is like a pirate lord guy that we've never seen before. But he destroys several of the fighters and escapes. Din Djarin meets Bo-Katan at an old Mandalorian castle and reveals that after she lost the Darksaber to Din Djarin after the whole Season 2 finale, her plans have been abandoned to reclaim Mandalore, and her followers have now taken off and become mercenaries on their own. And she suggests that Din Djarin should travel to Mandalore by himself. So, bit of a kickoff episode in this one. There was not like a crazy amount of like super in-depth material to go over or anything like that. But just like
I felt like they did a good job setting up the quests that were going to be going on throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it was a really good setup, and it makes me wonder if we're going to see this pirate lord guy again. He was kind of an interesting character, like an evil tree beard.
Yeah, good to see a Pirates of the Caribbean crossover. It was,
Yeah,
Davy
I was
Jones's
thinking-
younger brother's back.
Yeah,
It's like Mossy instead of Squiddy.
yeah. You get the Star Wars version of Barbosa. Yeah. Okay, so first question that I had, because Bryce brought this up when we were watching the episode. Mandalorian helmets, they don't look pressurized, and yet they always make the pressurized sound every time someone puts it on. Like, what's up with this?
Even when a child's hair is hanging out the back.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's so interesting because I saw a picture the other day where someone shared a helmet, like a toy replica helmet that you could buy from Target, a Mandalorian one, and they compared it to the one that they gave the child in the beginning of the episode, and they said that they just repainted that helmet and popped it on his head. I don't know, it wasn't that similar, but when I looked at it twice, I'm like, hang on a second. I don't know if they really lost the budget in terms of the props department, but yeah, I agree there.
I think it was a nod because everyone complained that the toy helmet didn't look anything like Boba Fett, or I think it was Jango in it at the time. So I think this was them saying like, it was the training helmet.
I had the Captain Rex Phase 1 helmet from back when those were being a thing, but it was the same ordeal where the visor was like extra thick, and it was designed for kids, right? Like just walking around at night.
So they could see.
Yeah,
exactly. You can't see with a regular T-slit visor.
Right. Yeah. So I think you're right there, Blake. I think it was like a little nod of a head to like, the kids that had
seems
these
like a very floony thing.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian armorer, she's like working the Beskar, forming the helmet, and then right at the end she just gives it a nice clean coat of like fake plastic spray paint right on top.
You see like the Hasbro box in the corner of the room.
Yeah, I think it'd be really funny if like it zoomed out while she was like blacksmithing, and then I'm watching in like an old TV monitor, and it's all fuzzy, and then she like comes out like with a box. So it's like they're just being told this is what it is, but it's just totally phony.
Yeah.
Man.
This pressurizing element though to the helmets, like I'm a little torn about it because of course like it's kind of hit and miss as to whether or not we're watching a piece of Star Wars that puts in that sound effect or not. I feel like they need to just kind of attack this debate and just, I don't know, do something.
Like an Iron Man moment where the whole thing like connects or what?
Yeah, I don't know. I was looking at a screenshot of a bunch of helmets from Star Wars Rebels, and the bottom of it was like this donut hole shape, what no one could fit their head through. And it was like this big thick rim on the inside that would kind of go between the chin and the neck. But it was extra like thick. So like, yeah, no one could fit their head through this like teeny little hole. And I assumed maybe they just didn't change the model from how it's usually positioned on the guy's body, like when they're doing their animation and stuff. Of course, they don't want anything being super hollow, right? Because no one's moving their mouth or whatever. but it's just, I don't know. To me, I was like, either that's just laziness or that's brilliant, because like maybe there is something that's in there that just kind of closes in a
Like
way, you know,
seals.
almost like a drawstring bag or something that just kind of seals into
That's kind of
place.
what I always thought it was something more along those lines. Because how else would a vacuum seal for space?
Yeah, exactly, right. Like it's always made me wonder. So I feel like in the same manner that we saw Din kind of tweaking with his armor in season 1, it's like, oh, that's what's beneath all those armor plates. It's like actually a bunch of wires and stuff, you know. In that same kind of spirit, I kind of hope that they do something in regards to this pressurizing element to the helmets, because I'm a little confused.
So you're saying when the helmet got put on, it should have just like cut all that kid's hair off when it pressurized? Yeah, exactly.
No wonder
So
Bo
everyone-
Katan has hair like that.
That's why everyone has bowl cuts.
Yeah.
That's the real reason they can't show their faces, because all their haircuts are really ugly.
Yeah.
It
No,
looks so derpy.
no wonder
They all
Boba
look like
lost all his hair
Mark
too. But yeah, I mean, in Book of Boba Fett, when he's in the Sarlacc pit, he takes an oxygen tube from a stormtrooper suit. He pulls it out of the chest from somewhere, and he sticks it into his helmet through the bottom, and then you hear the pressurized effect, and he's able to breathe again. So
Doesn't make any sense though.
it always
Unless
comes
was-
up, right? It always comes up, and this was just the latest thing. I was like, you know what? Bryce said something about, we got to try and figure this out.
Because wasn't Boba's suit originally like airtight? I thought that's why he wore a flight suit.
Yeah, I would imagine that's kind of the idea, right?
Well, I mean,
like that.
they're kind of designed after Stormtrooper and Clone Trooper, right? And and we've seen those guys running around and they always have that like black kind of tube on their neck.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't see that on the Mandos.
Right. So
I
like,
think
where
Boba
is it?
has one. It's just a different color.
This is maybe one of those things you're not supposed to look into.
Yeah. We're getting into the science too much. Yeah.
Maybe they're just making the noises.
Speaking of science,
Over.
Speaking of science, the armorer brings up Din Djarin presents the armorer with this little crystallized piece of a building or something like that. It's got Mandalorian text inscribed on it. It's been crystallized in this like green kind of like rock stuff. And she says that this is evidence that everything has been crystallized by fusion rays. And to my knowledge, fusion rays have never come up before. Even on the Wikipedia, there's no page that I could find. Like it wasn't hyperlinked or anything like on the page for this episode. And I just wanted to throw it out there to the room. Like, do you guys have any idea? Like, have you heard this term before? Maybe in Star Wars, and maybe I'm just missing something, or do we have to like maybe this is something to come up with a story later down the road or whatever?
I've only heard of fission rays, not fusion rays.
Fission rays.
That was a joke.
What the heck's a fission ray? You're confusing everyone even more.
Just making it worse.
They sound like Pokemon moves. Fission ray.
You mean nuclear fission? Yeah.
That's
Okay.
what I was getting at.
All right.
No.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm not smart enough to understand this in the brief 5 seconds that I needed to talk about it. So, for those willing to look it up, go for it.
I don't know what all we have. Like so like how many types
Maybe
of
like a welding
rays
rod.
and lasers do we have?
But
Because ray, like a ray isn't something
It's like a beam.
in Star
I would
Wars.
think.
Yeah.
Right.
We're used to like laser blasts or like beams. Aside from ray shields, which I'm assuming doesn't have anything to do with fusion rays.
No. Although Blake's comment about the fission, I mean, okay, so we do know that the whole planet was, because we saw a flashback and there were like TIE bombers flying overhead and they basically just nuked the planet, right? Like that was kind of like what they did. So maybe this is her way of following that up with like a in-universe scientific explanation for like, this is the post effect of those TIE bomb blasts that go off, those plasma bombs that they kind of release and drop onto the onto the ground. Maybe this is like a follow-up to the effect that applies afterwards, right?
What was the context of it? This is what happened to Mandalore? When
Yeah, so if you look up
what?
the, what's it called again? The Night of 1,000 Tears or something, which is the night in which the TIE bombers bomb Mandalore. And there's a couple of shots in this flashback where you see the like the K2SO units, like all those Imperial kind of enforcer droids, like they're kind of marching like Terminators across the planet, and the TIE bombers are kind of screaming overhead, and they're dropping bombs all over the place. And you see Sundari City essentially just explode into this like kind of nuclear blast wave or whatever.
Interesting.
So maybe fusion rays is her way of saying like this is like what's left, like this is the result of something being completely crystallized by the explosion of a plasma bomb or something like that. I don't know, just trying to make sense of all this stuff. Yeah,
I feel like it's almost like an explanation for the fallout or whatever happened. Obviously, there's probably not nuclear bombs in the Star Wars galaxy, but whatever the equivalent is I guess what they're trying to illustrate is left on Mandalore.
It's all glass,
I'm
right?
sure we'll see.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll see exactly what they're talking about once he goes there.
For sure.
Goes there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We got a Cara Dune update in this episode. It was very brief, very subtle. Mandalorian asks Greef Karga about Marshal Dune when he gets word that Greef Karga is looking for a new marshal, and he says that she's been recruited by special forces after Moff Gideon's arrest, and Moff Gideon has been sent off to a New Republic war tribunal. So we got a brief kind of explanation for what happened after season 2's finale in that time break there. And it's also worth kind of throwing out there that Jon Favreau has said at one point in an interview that the time gap between season 2 and season 3 is between 1 and 2 years worth of time, because that's how long Grogu has been trained by Luke for. Yeah. So it wasn't like an overnight thing. It's kind of like an Empire Strikes Back sort of ordeal where, the actual movie or break between these two films has been a lengthier period of time. Yeah.
Right. And when you're following a guy whose face is a chrome helmet, it's hard to tell that time has passed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, do you guys have any thoughts on this? On Cara Dune? Of course, this is a character that we probably won't see again. I mean, we've intentionally kind of tried to avoid the subject only because it was a controversial moment back in the day. But did it kind of ring any bells? When the term came up, when the name came up, Marshal Dune.
It was kind of a double take moment for me, because like, oh right, that's what
Yeah.
it's supposed to be. And
Yeah.
then I'll say I was satisfied with what they decided to do, just because if they had ignored it entirely, I would have been annoyed.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it wouldn't make any sense with the relationship of the characters.
Mhm.
And I think if they need to write someone out with her backstory, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I feel it was fine. Like when they mentioned it, I honestly would have completely forgotten unless they did mention it. So when it did come up, or when Greef mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That all happened, and that's why she's not here. But I feel like even though whatever happens in the future with the character, I feel like it's not a complete closed book. It's not like they turned around and said, oh, she died in the battle of whatever. So
that's true.
It should, like, there's room for her to come back, but then it also, I'm glad that they got that out of the way and they're just going to move on with the story.
Yeah, it's a good way to do it for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well said. No, I agree entirely.
So we had the first appearance since the Rise of Skywalker of the Anzellans, which featured Babu Frik, and we got the whole frickin' family in this episode.
What did you guys say when they first showed up?
Frick! I got a cool little audio clip here.
No, Grogu. Not a pet.
No, a squeezy. Bad baby. Oh, bad.
Sorry about that. He's young.
Bad baby.
No, Grogu.
I love that. Bad baby. No squeezy.
Like a '90s kid show.
No squeezy, bad baby.
Honestly, this is kind of one of my favorite parts.
The
of
Gremlins.
Yeah,
episode.
yeah. I really liked it. Yeah.
Like I guess like less so that I don't know. I love that when they were the first couple shots are like really close up and then it pans out and he's like, you know, like hunched down in this.
He's like in there.
Yeah.
Much in like an air vent. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, that was really creative. I really like that.
Yeah, I
very
like
Star
that a
Wars.
lot. That's very, yeah, totally. Yeah, it's very Star Wars to do something. It's kind of quirky. It's got like a quirky element to it,
Yeah.
and then you see him
Like
hunched over
Luke,
in this
right?
little place. Yeah, very,
I like that
very.
there's like
Yeah,
there's aliens of all sizes in Star Wars, and they are gonna have, you know, like residents inside cities,
mm-hmm.
but it's just gonna be they're gonna be in like weird places. Yeah.
Yeah, Kirk, what'd you think of these guys coming back? Yeah.
I loved it. Babu Frik was one of my favorite parts of episode 9, and I think like the quirkiness of having more aliens in the show, full stop, and obviously different living spaces to accommodate for different life forms other than humans is what makes Star Wars Star Wars. Yeah. So I loved it. My favorite part was when Grief was trying to translate to them, but like they were literally just speaking English, and then he just translated.
Just poor English.
Yeah,
That was funny.
And then Mando's just like, I got it. It's all right.
Yeah.
Fine.
This is pretty
He
good.
kept doing it anyway.
Can we?
I will say.
Oh,
I-
yeah. Sorry.
I did
Go
also
for it.
enjoy.
Blake. Yeah.
I did also enjoy that by introducing some of this stuff, it's starting to blend the narrative between the two trilogies as well. 'Cause I
Yeah.
know one of the main complaints was the sequels didn't have a lot of the original trilogy aliens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to see it kind of blending, right?
Yeah, I agree. Because these shows tend to fit in its own category of really having respect from fans of those films and of the older films, and everyone just seems to kind of like them. You know, I haven't met anyone that hates The Mandalorian with a passion, in the same way that I would meet people who just hate the prequels with a passion, or you know, people who hate the sequels, or whatever it is. And it kind of seems to be the best blend of both worlds, right? Like you get a story that takes place just after the original trilogy timeline, but includes a lot of elements from the prequel and animated shows, and yet it still pulls strings and has attachments to plot lines that'll happen later in the sequel films too. I mean, we've seen the Easter eggs of the possible kind of Snoke theory, you know, the back to tank scene in season 2 somewhere, I think it was. Yeah. So
I think what Mandalorian does for me is that, and I may be wrong, my memory may not be great, but I think it's one of the only Star Wars mediums that blends everything together. So we've got elements of the prequels in there with Mando's, you know, N1 Starfighter. We've got Babu Frik from episode 9. We've got Stormtroopers from the original trilogy. We've got other elements later in this episode that came from Rebels, and as well as the Clone Wars. So I don't think any other Star Wars movie, at least, has really, to this extent, blended everything together in such a really creative way. And that's why I really, at least, enjoy little moments like this, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We got introduced to a brand new Mandalorian planet within the Mandalorian system, and it's called Kalevala. And I don't know, to me that sounds like a pretty sweet Mandalorian name planet, like very kind of, I don't know, Norse-ish, Viking-ish. I don't know. Would you say, Bryce, like, does it sound a bit Valheim-y to you?
I mean, it definitely like had that feel, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like this is the which planet was this again? This is the one,
Kalevala is the planet at the very end of the episode where we see Bo-Katan in her castle.
Right. Yeah, and it seemed very fjordy, a lot of fjords and like bit rugged with mountains.
Yeah.
It was a cool place.
I like the moving.
We've never seen this before.
We've never seen it before. Apparently, it's been mentioned before in the Clone Wars in the Voyage of Temptation episode. I think that was season 2. It's when we first meet the Duchess Satine, and I believe that was when we first meet her. But it's been around, I guess, in the lore, but we've never actually seen it before.
What happens in an episode? Like, what's Satine doing there?
So Duchess Satine was Bo-Katan's sister, who spoiler alert, she like died in the Clone Wars and everything when Maul just gutted her in front of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I guess to this day they have like a family castle that still remains there because they were both born there. I'm assuming, aside from their role as leader of Mando, or at least that's what Satine was before the whole thing went down. I'm assuming that they have, some family roots and some estate there, I guess, on Kalevala. And I guess that's why Bo-Katan's just sitting there chilling, like in the chair,
It'll be interesting to learn more about this planet, right? Like, is it in Mandalorian space?
Like, it's supposed to be in the territory.
Like a colony?
So one of the moons?
I think it's just in the system, in the same way, because there was another planet in Star Wars Rebels that popped up, which is also in the Mandalore system, and it's where Gar Saxon is from. And it's also where Satine's family lives, if I'm not mistaken. I forget what it's called though.
Yeah, it's interesting that Mandalore, like the Mandalorians, don't have kind of like multiple colonies or like multiple settlements, on other planets.
Yeah.
Or maybe they do. No.
I think the excuse, at least in the EU, was always their population was too low.
Right. But why? I mean, they've been part of the galaxy for like tens of thousands of years.
they never bounced back
at the same pace.
Mandalorian Wars.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
That being said, their numbers are significantly higher in the new canon, so I don't know how that all falls out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see more about like this place and like is Satine the only one there on that entire planet hanging out by her lonesome in an empty castle?
Yeah, Bo-Katan. Yeah. That's
what it looked like.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about that too. I mean, we got a pretty cool snapshot, the overhead kind of drone shot of her castle, like on the what do you call that? Like a inlet or like a, I don't know, like an outlet, like a piece of land that sticks out. Peninsula, is that what I'm looking? Is that the word? Yeah, word I'm looking for.
Penicillin.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a cool looking planet. Maybe there's some cool stuff there to explore in a later Star Wars story. It's really great to see a planet like this kind of come into the canon. Something we could see, something that's been mentioned and talked about in, say, like the Star Wars Encyclopedia. It's in that. But we've never actually seen it before, and like here it comes, and this is just like something that's so great about these shows. Something that they're really kind of making an effort to do is like kind of use the existing lore that we have, and not continuously just come up with like brand new stuff that we're just not familiar with at all, and just utilize it in like a good creative way. And I think that's great. So. Yeah, that's the episode in a nutshell. So let's do some Pablo points or Poodoos. So just to describe this rating system.
I've got some questions.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I was wondering with the pirate captain, because we didn't touch too much on that.
Oh yeah.
Or the starting of like the pirates are obviously be after Mando now. I thought that whole sequence was pretty fun. I was half expecting Hondo to show up. Instead, we got the other guy.
Yeah, so true.
But I bet you this is going to lead into Hondo showing up, though. That'd be my guess.
That would be interesting. I mean, like the pirate community in Star Wars is pretty big, so I don't know. I'm sure he probably knows Hondo, this dude, but
I smell profit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's such
That's
a good
what,
line.
Disney's thinking.
Man, it would really suck though if they like brought Hondo and it was just like they got to make a good mask for that, because like the one that they have at Disney parks is it's a little not so great.
Oh really?
Yeah. Man, that'd be quite funny if they just use like the animatronic from the Disney ride.
So I was wondering about the pirate captain ship. Is that something that's been in the lore before? Because I recognized
you recognize
it might have been a fan art thing that I'd seen a while back.
Yeah, so it bears a lot of resemblance to the Emperor's Imperial Star Destroyer, and I'm totally blanking on what it's called now. But the
Eclipse?
The Eclipse, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Palpatine's Star Destroyer, the Eclipse. It bears the same exact shape on the front, where like it kind of comes down. Yeah.
coney beard thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think the way that they did that is completely intentional to try and mimic the look of maybe like a pirate boat or something like that, rather than.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I like those pirates a lot. They felt very. This is kind of how I envisioned Star Wars too. So
Yeah. Yeah, I
agreed.
I thought it was really cool. I don't know if you guys watched the whole credits, the ending credits, like with the concept art at the end, but there was one piece of art in there which had like a different angle of the top of the ship. It's the scene where Din flies right over it, and you don't really see what this concept art's actually doing, but it's actually got like an exterior kind of almost like a hangar bay that kind of dips down. It's like an alcove like on the top of the ship. Similar to a boat, right? Like you look at the boat and it's like it's got edges like a fence to it, but then the center is kind of like lower, right? And it kind of bared that kind of resemblance a little bit to like a pirate boat or whatever. And I thought that was kind of cool.
Also, it also like stored the fighters.
Yeah,
kind of like an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in the same way that you might have like little dinghies or whatever hanging kind of near the side of like, or in the middle of the boat or whatever, right? So yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, that was super cool. I really enjoyed it a lot. I would say that was probably my favorite part of the episode was the whole pirate part.
Yeah,
that was
very, like Bryce was saying, it's just very Star Wars. I always love that kind of side of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, for sure.
Was the captain a new race? One thing I was wondering.
I think
I didn't recognize him.
I didn't recognize him. Yeah. No, he looked like an evil version of Treebeard.
It's accurate.
Yeah. Moss face.
I mean, he had a very like, it was like a Moss themed name too. Wasn't his name like
Moss Gideon?
Moss Gideon.
Moss
Gideon.
Gorian Shard.
Old Greg jokes when I looked.
I'm old Greg.
Captain Gorian Shard. He is. There is currently no species name for what he is. At least that I can see.
Gamorrean Shard.
Gorian Shard.
I wonder if he's just a really ugly version of the Jedi, the guy that's on the Jedi Council.
Oh, Opus.
The big tree guy.
Yeah. I totally know what you're talking about. Oppo Rancis or something like that.
Rancis, yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, maybe.
There's a new question for the trivia right there.
Maybe he just. It almost looks like he's got some liquidy stuff beneath his lip there. Maybe he just drank one of those things from Jabba's palace. He's got some milk stash going on. Some slime stash. You guys have any last notes for this one, or should we give it some points or poodoos?
I didn't know that the N1 Starfighter, there's a connecting bit for Grogu to get through. I did not know that.
Yeah, I was like, how did he get out?
I guess
like he crawled into Mando's lap.
I guess it uses the same. Oh, I see what you mean. You know, like from the cockpit to the droid compartment that he's using. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought that was like completely isolated because the droid were in base before.
Right. Well,
yeah, I felt like. I felt like they didn't show that in the first episode. I mean, in the Book of Boba Fett show, did they?
Nope, this is the first time we've seen it.
Yeah.
Because we see the capsule opens, like the dome will lift.
Yeah.
But nothing interior.
Do you guys have
space whales?
They had Purgils, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Thank you for bringing that up. One. Yeah. So, those shadows of the big, huge, those things in hyperspace. Yeah, that we got a glimpse of Purgils, and this is actually kind of a big deal. And I can't believe I didn't write this down in my notes, but yeah, it's a big deal because Ezra Bridger from Star Wars Rebels had a big connection with these Purgils. Like he was able to communicate with them, and he had the thing with animals, right? But ultimately, these Purgils is actually what has Thrawn and Ezra taken into hyperspace into the middle of who knows where, because these Purgils like got a hold of like the ship that they were on and then took off, right? So next time we see Ezra Bridger, maybe there's going to be some Purgils around, right? Maybe this is kind of their way of like a longer storyline, kind of heading in a certain direction. But
I think, and this could be future spoilers for season 3, but I think the big cameo at the end of the season is going to be Ezra and Thrawn leading into the Ahsoka show, because I think Ahsoka comes next. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, I really feel like that's going to be that's what the next thing's going to be, and them hinting at that right at the beginning was a pretty good indication of that.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's
almost like how in season 2, episode 1, they hinted at Boba coming back, and then the next show ended up being the Book of Boba Fett. So
yeah,
I know I might be looking a little bit too much into it, but
no,
maybe the
that's
next
good prediction.
Yeah,
Book of Purgils.
That's some good math. Yeah.
Book of Babu.
The Book of Purgle.
Yeah, like I think they're just kind of using maybe Mandalorian as a launching off point to produce other series.
Certainly.
Which I hope it doesn't become that, because I really want the Mandalorian just to be about the Mandalorian. Like I don't want it to be. Yeah.
That's what ruined the
season 2 for you, right?
No, but I'm blanking on the hero's name, the Archer guy, right?
Archer.
Back with Arrow, Arrow season 1
Arrow.
back in the day, DC. This is years ago now. It was really good, and then they did well, so I just used it as a jumping point for all their spin-offs. And then Arrow just wasn't interesting anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I felt like out of the first 3 opening episodes, sorry, let me rephrase that. Out of the first episodes of each of the seasons, so season 1, 2, and 3, I feel like this one was probably the weakest out of the 3. Obviously, the first one we were first revealed to the child, and the second one we had that really hour-long episode with oh no, I've forgotten the marshal's name. Someone's gonna have to remind me here.
In which episode?
In episode 1 of season 2 of The Mandalorian.
The
Marshal.
You mean the guy in the desert, right? Or you got the guy in the desert, or the one that we were talking about today, Cara Dune?
Marshall Vance.
Yeah. No, Cobb Vanth. Yeah.
I kept saying Corb.
Yeah, Cobb Vanth. I was thinking of Vance because he also plays the guy he also plays in The Office, where there's like Vance refrigeration. Anyway, so I'm being off topic here. So yeah, episode 1 we had the reveal of Grogu, or the child, and then I thought episode 1 of season 2 was also really strong. I felt like this episode 1 of season 3, they were doing so much. Like he went to go find IG-88's path, and he went to go back to Navarro to visit Navarro. Then he went to go see Bo-Katan. Then we had the kid in the beginning. So I don't know where they're going to take this season, but it just seemed like there's a lot of different things kind of going on, and there wasn't too much focus yet. But like I say,
with more like a jumping point, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. But like any movie, I feel like it's with these TV shows, you got to watch the whole season before you can make a complete judgment, compared to watching just the first 10 minutes of a movie and being like, I'm out. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Totally, yeah. No, that's exactly like Book of Boba, too. Book of Boba, it's like, I feel like most people see the first episode and they're not super hooked to watch the whole season. And then the later episodes, of course, are like pretty good. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right, Pablos or Pudus? Let's do this. So we got a new rating system for 2023. We're doing this for who knows how long. So we got a scale of, basically it's a scale of 7. All right, so we start with the negative side of the scale, which is 3 Pudus is the worst of the worst. You got 2 Pudus, 1 Pudu. 50% is like a Bendu. That's right in the middle, okay? And then we got Pablo points. We got 1, 2, and 3 Pablo points. 3 is being the best, 100%. This is like the best of Star Wars kind of thing. All right, so Blake,
you also accept halves and quarters.
Yeah, you can do a 3. Yeah, you can do it like a 2.5 or like whatever. Come up with something. But Blake, you're first.
3/16.
You're up first, Blake. What's it gonna be?
Well, definitely in the points era here, because I definitely did enjoy it. And to me, I felt like it was stepping back to smaller stakes, which I really liked, because we're not dealing with Jedi and everything again. I mean, we'll see what happens in the season. You got me concerned with what you were saying there, Kirk, at the end, though. I'm just changing my mind a little bit. We'll see what happens.
Oh, no. Should I quickly do the what makes a good episode helpers?
No, that's all right.
All right.
I'm just gonna go with my gut feeling here. I think.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with 1.8. I think I feel 2 is a little bit too strong. Just kind of see what's going on, and was a little bit, spread out, different story arc. So I'm gonna go with 1.8 points.
1.7 makes more sense then.
Sure. Plus or minus 0.3.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
These point ranking systems, I thought was going to be simple.
That's the joke. That's the joke of it all.
Well, you're doing really well because I think it took me like 20 minutes to even figure out how this rating system works.
Let's see if you've learned. Bryce, give us a point.
What I've learned is to keep it simple.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go 1 Pablo point.
1 Pablo point. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel like I enjoyed it enough. I don't feel like it had a lot of the, if I'm giving the first episode of the first season is a 3 Pablo for me. So this one, I think I'm going with a 1. It had like some enjoyable stuff, but it also had some stuff that reminded me of Boba Fett, some like cheesy stuff, kind of lower budgety kind of stuff. Like I definitely still enjoyed it, and there's still lots of fun Star Wars things in it. I think it'll get better from here.
Fair enough. All right. Just so you have 3 examples there, Kirk. I'll jut in here with mine. I'm just gonna do a solid 2 Pablo points. I feel like it was
big spender.
I feel like it contributed to Star Wars lore in a pretty good way in a few different areas. We certainly got a lot out of finally getting to see Kalevala. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought we had a few good areas in with we saw the first time ever how a child gets inducted into the tribe for this Children of the Watch, or I forget what they're called. That was kind of interesting. And then we got a little more progression with of course like Grief Karga's planet, the place that he's Navarro, where he's like set up shop. You see how much time has actually gone by. It was a good visual reminder. Like this has been a while, since season 2 and 1. And we also got some information on Moff Gideon and all that, and Cara Dune. So I thought it was like, to me, I was like, it kept me intrigued. And we also got the Purgle thing. It was a great thing to point out. So we got some of that. So for me, it just kind of had like a lot of good kind of cool things that I really wanted to see in a Star Wars episode. So that's what gives it 2 points for me. So Kirk, you're up.
Okay, so remind me, so Pablo points is the good side. What's the middle and what's the bad side?
Bendu's the middle. Bendu's the middle, yep. and Pudu's is the negative range.
Okay, all right. So if 3 Pablo points are for that's what I would give the last episode of season 2 of The Mandalorian.
All right.
I would give 2 Pablo points for the opening episode of season 2, and then I've already forgotten what's the negative again. Pudu's
right, yeah.
So then 3 Purdue points would be like Tommy Wiseau's with The Room. Like that's really not good.
I'm gonna assume that's just something really terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like it's
yeah,
like the worst movie of all time.
Yeah, you got it.
Pandemic, yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah. So I would put this at 1.5.
All right.
Pablo points. I have to be really careful there, because if I say Purdue, 1.5 Pablo
Purdue points.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good start to the episode, to the show. But there's definitely my weakest out of the first 3 opening seasons.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. Cool. Well, that summarizes our Mandalorian chat here, and now we gotta roll in the Bad Batch, but we don't want to spoil things for you, Kirk, because you got to catch up on that show. So you're gonna exit out at the cantina, I see.
We're gonna jettison you out of the escape pod here, so hopefully you got some sort of breathing apparatus.
Hopefully you have a stealing Mandalorian helmet.
No, actually, I've just got a Mando helmet from Target, and it just works in space. I've already tried it.
Oh man.
I spent some time underwater, and no problem, no seal at all. The hair is hair's good.
Got a nice custom
The one
paint
with the
job from the
Crocs, no
armorer.
worries.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She's really
Thank you for
cranking
having
these
me on
things out.
again.
Oh, buddy, anytime. And right before you go, I know, I know we can't really talk about things too much, but May the 4th is around the corner, and I'm sure you can maybe say as much as we got some big news coming.
Yeah, we're definitely getting at Orbit Key. We're getting ready for some new stuff coming out on May the 4th, Star Wars wise. And apart from that, I can't share anything else.
Excellent. New wave.
Yeah,
So people listening in should go to the Orbit Key website and subscribe to the newsletter so they don't miss out on the information.
Keep clicking refresh. It might be there a while, but it'll show up.
Absolutely. Yeah, maybe click refresh on May 3rd as it ticks over to midnight. I'd recommend.
Right.
But all the other Star Wars stuff is still there. So if you've got any May 4th, at least gifts to buy, there's definitely a few things that are still there. But May 4th should be a good day.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it, and we'll catch you again coming back on in the coming weeks whenever you're able.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again, guys.
Awesome. Thanks for chatting, buddy.
Good seeing you, Kirk.
Talk to you later.
Later, man.
All right. So the Bad Batch season 2. Let's cue the music. Season 2, Episode 11, Metamorphosis. Dr. Royce Hemlock travels to an Imperial facility on Mount Tantiss to meet Nala Se. He tries to persuade her into taking part in the Emperor's cloning projects, but she refuses. Meanwhile, a covert transport bound for Mount Tantiss ends up stranded on a planet somewhere, and Sid assigns the Bad Batch to recover its cargo. While exploring the wreck, they discover that the cargo is actually an immature Zillo Beast created secretly away from the Camino laboratories, of course, now that they're all destroyed, to serve as a living armament resource. An Imperial strike force is sent to recover the beast and capture all nearby witnesses, forcing the Bad Batch to retreat. Shortly after, Lama Su is brought to Mount Tantiss to Royce to help him persuade Nala Se to cooperate. He divulges Omega's existence to Dr. Hemlock as the key to force her compliance in return for his freedom. All right, so this is we're a few episodes from the end of the season, and this was
filler.
Pretty yes and no. So like,
okay,
yes, it's a bit fillery for the Clone Force 99, but definitely back on track with the way that season 1 left off. The last scene being on Mount Tantiss, the last scene being Nala Se in custody in the Imperial base, right? This is that big mountain base that we have all been intrigued by, the one that all the Republic commandos are like doing their thing, training the TK units for the first time, right?
This is a taster then.
So like this is the first time.
A reminder of everyone what was happening.
Exactly.
It's been so long.
This is sort of back on track with the main plot that we've been looking forward to for a while. It's a slow integration, of course, because we have to I guess the writers had to find a way to bring the Bad Batch back into that fold, right? Like cross paths once again with the events that are happening at this Imperial facility. And I also noticed that the cloning symbol that Dr. Pershing from the Mandalorian, his uniform, like on the patch on the sleeve, a lot of guys around the characters around the Imperial base have this same the logo on their uniform, which makes me wonder a little more as to the involvement and the progression that we're going to see a few more Imperials kind of join this cloning effort.
Supposed to be the Imperial Science Corps sort of idea?
No, so this cloning this is like a I'm gonna look it up just to make sure, but this is the cloning. I think it's like the cloning logo or something. Like there's like it's like a stripe and then like a dot or like a 2-dot kind of stripe thing next to it, right? So if you look up a picture of Dr. Pershing, it's on his uniform, like on the sleeve, and it's because he's kind of like an Imperial doctor, right? Like he was the one that was about to experiment on Grogu, and
right, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Is that the same guy?
No, it's not the same guy, but
Oh,
it's the
different,
same.
But is it the same logo?
It's the same logo. Yeah, it's the same uniform.
That's what I was gonna search up.
Yeah, so he works for I don't know exactly like which science division he works for necessarily, but a lot of their science divisions have these different logos. I mean, we know from Rogue One that the engineering crew from the Death Star had their own logo on their hats and on their uniforms. And Dr. Pershing is definitely, a character in which has probably something to do with whatever initiative is going on here, right?
Right. So that's pretty big, right? So that's kind of like huge.
Definitely.
Mandalorian insight now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've always kind of speculated at Dr. Pershing experiments on Grogu in relation to maybe Palpatine's plans later for cloning his body. Maybe he can't quite create a body that has that midi-chlorian count that he can use the Force in that body, whatever, right? There's something, or maybe Snoke, maybe he's making Snokes, right?
Hold up. We also saw that, we also got in the Tales of the Jedi that Yaddle is killed, right?
Yeah.
What if the Emperor's using Yaddle's DNA to clone Yoda? Right?
Right.
Because the Emperor would have taken that body, sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I replied to a tweet from Matt Martin earlier today, who was posted a video about a little like Yaddle bust that's hidden somewhere in Doc Ondar's shop in Galaxy's Edge. And I said, now that's a storyline where there's more room for story. Like I bet the Jedi for years wondered what happened to her. Right, because she wasn't there. She didn't go with the rest of the Jedi to Qui-Gon's funeral. She stayed behind, and then when they all get back, she's just gone. She was on the council. Right. Boom. She left the council because she says that to Dooku. She left the council because of her opinions differentiated. She didn't think things weren't quite going the way that they should be, but she was still part of the Jedi Order. And then boom, gone. Right. So it's like there must be some sort of investigation into this. Like this is a Jedi Master that just went missing. Like it's kind of like a Sifo Dyas thing where I'm sure maybe years later we'll get some sort of story arc in which kind of fills us in. Maybe there were some Jedi that go and investigate, and maybe there's been like a cover up. Maybe Palpatine's orchestrated a cover up to kind of just make some events happen that explains her disappearance or something like that, and then they just kind of buy it and leave kind of thing. There's got to be some sort of consequence here, right? Because like. No one just goes missing. So
especially someone of that, prestige.
Yeah. So like Sifo Dyas' thing. Yeah, it is very interesting. Yeah. So no, I wonder. You might be right. You might be onto something. Maybe she's the first kind of experiment. Maybe they take her body and try and do something.
Because we've always been told that you can't clone Force users. So maybe...
Well, the Rise of Skywalker changed that, though. As soon as the Rise of Skywalker came out, it changed that lore forever. Because it made it possible.
With Snoke, you mean?
Yeah, with Snoke and with Palpatine. Because Palpatine's body's a different body as well. So, like, it's definitely...
Though that was because of... Maybe, like, it was the case that they couldn't until they experimented with whatever Yoda's race is.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just right?
Why didn't Palpatine clone himself like a good body? Was that like part of the...
I think that's kind of the problem. Yeah, that's part of the issue,
issue,
right? Because part of the issue I think is like kind of like what Blake's saying is like it's always been a problem in the lore to like clone a Force user because of the science behind it, because the midi-chlorians can't just be created out of thin air, because that's essentially like a Plagueis thing, just create life from nothing, right? So I think that's why there's so much like kind of retroactive story building here to try and get to that phase in which Palpatine can achieve that goal. And I like that because it's always stuck out to me like a sore thumb. And it's one of the reasons why I have such a hard time enjoying that movie, because I just can't get past this Palpatine clone thing. And I've never been a huge fan of the story, but whatever.
Do we like this better than the old EU system where they finally were able to clone a Jedi, which is He's from the Thrawn trilogy, and that back then the issue was they would slowly go crazy, then they could just become insane.
I know that was a thing, and then later on, if we're counting it as Legends continuity, Starkiller also was a clone for the second Force Unleashed game, right? The second Force Unleashed story. So
yeah, and the reveal was there's hundreds of them.
Yeah, exactly. They're like making an army of like Force users or whatever. So I've never been a huge fan of the whole cloning Force user thing, to be honest. Like I've always thought that it was really not cool. Like it was just one of those things that just shouldn't be done.
It just gets out of hand too fast.
It just it just gets out of hand too fast. It's almost like introducing.
I didn't mind the insane part, where it's like it didn't work because like it looked like it was okay at the beginning, and then they just go nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't like the Starkiller part.
You know, George Lucas has said in interviews that he's always regretted making electro weapons combat ready for lightsabers. He's always regretted that. And it makes me wonder, like, it's a rabbit hole, right? Because like once you make something that can combat a lightsaber, sure, it can't slice through walls, but like it kind of diminishes the effect of owning a lightsaber. And then now we're getting things like
it's all electro.
Yeah, and now we're getting things like what is it? What was is it the Dark Troopers or the Praetorian Guards or something? There's something now that I mean, other than Beskar, there's another material out there that can just straight up block lightsabers. And like there's just more things that just keeps building. It's like, okay, when does it stop, right? Like when does having so many things all of a sudden make lightsabers like just a normal thing to have now? And you might as well just have like a vibroblade or something, right? So yeah, like cloning Force.
I find that's been happening recently with Star Wars materials and like resources.
Yeah.
Like name a single like mineable resource in a movie or TV series that doesn't explode. Every resource in Star Wars blows up when you handle it too roughly.
Yeah, coaxium, ipsium. What's that other one?
Whatever the
barium gas or whatever. You know, the one that gets all colorful. And Tabana gas. I mean, there's so many, right?
So now it's not special, right? It feels really like bland.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, it's an issue I think they got to fix, and this cloning thing has always been amongst the debatable topics, but yeah, here we are. We're getting like the earliest of chronological stories happening to kind of plant those seeds, which maybe get the ball rolling. Maybe we'll see some things further implemented in season 2 before the end of the season, and then maybe that's going to be followed up with something in Mandalorian season 3, because we did get something and some little tidbits in season 2 and 1 with this whole cloning ordeal, this whole cloning plot line. So yeah, that'll be interesting. That'd be kind of cool.
I do like the Kaminoan arc, kind of the fallout from the fall of like Lamassu and stuff like that.
They mentioned an off-world cloning facility, right? So wouldn't that mean more of them should have survived?
You talking about the one in season 1, the off-world cloning facility?
I think there's a conversation in this episode to talk about an off-world cloning facility.
I can't recall that, but if there is, then the off-world cloning facility is there. Like it's at Mount Tantiss. Like they've made a laboratory, for their doctors and such. They've essentially taken the research that the Kaminoans had, and they've given it to their own scientists, right? And then Dr. Pershing is clearly a legacy character of that program that's like used the Kaminoan science research and continued to further do whatever the Empire bids, but now they're doing it without the Kaminoans because they wiped them all out essentially, right? So they
want total control.
Yeah, they want total control over the tech and the research, right? So Nala Se actually doesn't realize that they've preserved the research, because like in this episode, that's when she finds out. And this character who's goes by the name of Dr. Royce Hemlock, and they have a history of some kind, because they kind of hinted that. He actually reveals to her in her cell, yeah, we saved the research. Yes, your city's gone, but like the research is still here, and you need to come and work for us for doing whatever Palpatine wants, because that's what's going to save your life, and they need her. They need her still because clearly they've brought, Lama Su, the old prime minister of Kamino, who turns out he's actually not dead. They bring him into the picture to try and help them convince her to work for them because they still need her for something. And that's when he says, like, yeah, well, the only way you're going to get her to do anything is if you give her Omega. And she's running around with those characters out there, the Clone Force 99. But according to the Empire's records, they're dead. So, like, to me, I'm like, okay, I'm really curious now as to what they're going to do because they'll probably look into it and go like, oh, these guys are killed off. But, like, what happened to the girl, right? It's a dead end. So maybe that's when they're going to send Crosshair on the hunt. You're like, hey, maybe they're not dead. Who knows? Like, but whatever.
They crossed the ship in this episode, right? Because they were chasing whatever their shuttle is, so maybe they'll get something through that.
I'm going to be really upset if they just ignore the fact that there was that entire moment in earlier this season where that dude just shoots the clone just to avoid all the paperwork and call it a day so he can write them off as dead, right? Like I'm going to be pretty upset if they just kind of ignore that happened, in favor of now, because the Empire's not gonna go out and look for them. It's like it's the Andor concept, right? They're too fat and satisfied. They're not gonna send out teams of people just to look for people that are supposedly dead, right? Like they're just not gonna do it
unless they need to. But now they possibly have a reason, which is they need to get Omega so that they can.
If she's confirmed dead though. Right, like, and maybe her name's not part of the report or something. Like maybe they just don't report her as dead, which is why they can justify kind of sending teams out to look for her or whatever. But
and then they find the Bad Batch.
Maybe something like that. Turns out, they're actually alive or whatever. But it would be kind of interesting if they had like a Imperial wide bounty like placed on their heads. And this is, I think, where things get really interesting. This is where maybe we could see Boba's first contract with the Empire or something, right? Like get some bounty hunter.
Tie all that in.
Yeah. I mean,
Sid will turn on him.
Yeah, because Cad Bane in Book of Boba mentions it's like an insult he uses. He's like, Boba Fett was like a cold-blooded killer that worked for the Empire. He's like kind of upset that like Boba took contracts with the Empire or whatever, right? Which I don't know why, but because they were kind of the only employer at the time, right? But them
in the huts,
yeah. Maybe they're gonna get into the underworld aspect. I feel like the Bad Batch has a lot of like, I like whenever we watch an episode where it just feels kind of like wasted, it always makes me a little upset because there's so much area in which they could use these characters and this team of people to like explore different areas of Star Wars, like the underworld, right? Like the Bad Batch, they're a group of outlaws on the run from the Empire. Like clearly like the underworld is like a great area for them to explore, and they are like taking jobs kind of like from someone in that world, like from Sid, who doesn't really seem that vicious at all. But I feel like they could get a bit grittier with these plot lines, you know what I mean?
No, I agree with that. Star Wars Underworld's weird like that, where it can be like really dingy, but it also can be almost light and comical.
Yeah,
the light and comical side.
See, I want some plot lines like that train heist episode with Ventress. She joined.
What's funny is this is what I was gonna bring up is exactly that. Because like to me, it's similar to that, but instead of like the interesting, intense part, it's more like we're getting the what's the guy's name? The Dengar side of it, was like the comical part of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like they need to integrate these characters.
That storyline, right?
Yeah.
Dengar just became like a joke.
Yeah. Simon Pegg voiced him too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Zillo Beast. We got Zillo Beast showing up. Hasn't been seen in Star Wars for 13 years. First appearance was in season 2, episode 18 of the Clone Wars. Zillo Beasts have blaster, lightsaber, impenetrable armor. They grow in size by ingesting energy sources. They're basically Star Wars' version of Godzilla. And they can be taken out by a special plasma laser, which makes them very sleepy. They also can be killed by the Dug's ancestors used to kill these beasts with a unique gas found on their planet, which was part of the part of the story arc when they first showed up. So,
but these were This one was genetically modified.
This one is
found all the information on it.
This one's genetically replicated. The Clone Wars plot line goes as this. This is a season 2 arc, so it's frequently for anyone who kind of starts midway through the series, it's going to be a story arc that gets skipped. But this story arc is. They basically they knock this creature out, and it's ordered. Palpatine orders that the Zillo Beast is brought from the world. I forget I think it's Malastare, to Coruscant for research purposes. So they bring the creature there, and it basically gets really angry in the laboratory that they're keeping it in, and it breaks out of its containment chamber, and it just causes havoc on Coruscant, right? And power outages, people dying, it's climbing all over
Godzilla
buildings.
And Coruscant.
Yeah, it's Godzilla and Coruscant. That's exactly what it is. And then the Jedi actually end up, saving Palpatine and because it's like going after him, and then they end up killing the creature. And at the end of the episode, Palpatine speaks to the doctor who's in charge of the research of this thing, and basically says. Hands her a data pad, and she looks at it and goes like, he says like, these are your new orders. And she looks up at him and she goes, you want me to clone the beast? And then he kind of just like walks off or whatever. And then the episode ends. And I've always had a problem with the story arc because like it never went anywhere. Like it just kind of ended, and the Clone Wars ended, and it just, nothing happened. And there was no mention of a Zillo Beast ever again. And I'm like, this feels like something that should be talked about. This big giant creature just like caused havoc on a city that's never been attacked in ages, and here we are, right?
Big city though. It's like the next day nothing happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Superhero movie ever.
Yeah, totally. It's like yeah. So I love the fact that this show has kind of revisited that story arc, and I've always liked the idea of a Zillo Beast. Like it's always been, I don't know. I feel like anyone who likes monsters and beasts and stuff like that showing up in Star Wars, like probably likes the Zillo Beast, But
it's pretty intense. I would say it's probably the biggest, most intense monster that really is in Star Wars Galaxy at this point. Is it not? Is there anything would be more intense than something that grows to the size of skyscrapers?
Certainly nothing that's like blaster impenetrable. I mean, we've seen the Rancor have come be pretty tough, but
I mean,
yeah,
there's the
that's
giant,
like close though.
What about the giant like space creature in the Maw?
Oh yeah,
big eyes that
Solo
when they're flying through.
Yeah, there's some pretty big space
Squid
creatures
monster.
out there. Yeah, I mean the Purgle as well. Like they're also all like the space creatures. I feel like are on another level of size and
it's like it's like goldfish that grow to the size of their bowl.
Yeah, totally. That's a great example. But yeah, this the Zillo Beast, they've clearly successfully cloned this thing, and which is, I guess, it's not a huge big deal because like they've been cloning people for a long time in the Star Wars galaxy, so I guess it's nothing to be super surprised about that they succeeded. But clearly, with the Camino and research, they did it. And, this thing breaks out and absorbs a bunch of energy and goes full size. And by the end of the episode, the Empire kind of gets it back and Bad Batch, they jet off once again.
Were you satisfied with that? I mean, you waited since season 2 Clone Wars to get this episode.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about like the ending of the episode, like Bad Batch once again failing to do something and then just jetting off and just...
Oh, I was gonna get at now Zillo Beast is again under research, and we don't know if it will ever be seen again. So it was basically like we picked up where we left off.
Yeah, I don't think the next episodes are going to be filler. I think we're definitely going to be in an area in which we're still exploring that storyline. At least I really hope so. But yeah, it's like, it's one of those stories. It's not super crazy intense, back on track, but it's enough that it's kind of hooking us back in. It's a way to ease us back in after all the fluff that we've had. But yeah, Bryce, what did you think about this episode?
I don't know. It was.
We're having a good laugh on the couch watching this one. When they
I
screw over a village and then run away.
I'm like, I don't want to poop on the episode too much, like on the podcast, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it had a lot of like good things in it. Not that I can think of it.
Probably the clone stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's
like
do
the
some.
I like the addition of the Empire swooping in with all those like gunships and like fighting the beast King Kong style.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And just rounding up the people.
Visually. Yeah. I mean, I think that was one of the things we talked about was, man, the villagers got just the worst end of the stick in this episode. Like, the Bad Batch shows up and just ruins everything for those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all in like internment camps now. They're just living there.
Oh man. Pablo points or Poodoos. I'm gonna give this one a Bendu, right in the middle, only because the Zillo Beast is back. If it didn't have the Zillo Beast and it was something else, I would have given this guy a few Poodoos because, like, you know, at that point it's just more fluff. But I feel like revisiting the whole storyline on Mount Tantiss, finally we're kind of getting back on track, back to the plot line where season 1 left off. And this was like a very small hook to do it. You know, it could have been a bit more intense, but I think I'm really happy that the Zillo Beast is back. I don't think it was quite a good enough episode to give it Pablo points, but I'm really happy that they hooked that guy back in, and you know, maybe just maybe just north of a Bendu. You know, maybe like 0.5 Pablo points or something. We're kind of in that range there, at least for me.
No, I'd say something similar. I'm gonna use this opportunity to say the word poodoo, so I'm gonna give it a half a poodoo. Just because I don't know how often I'm gonna get to do that.
Fair enough.
That's half a Pablo poodoo.
Yeah, half a Pablo. Bryce, what's it gonna be for you?
I'll do a Bendu as well. I think. I mean, yeah, there was some good stuff, but I think it's a Bendu for me.
Fair enough.
And I had a thought, and it just flew out the window.
All right. Well, next.
While you're thinking about that, Bryce.
Yeah, let me think.
Let me pitch this. Do you think there's too many clone commandos at this base? Because I was always led to believe there's only like a few hundred of them total in the whole Grand Army. And I feel like this whole base is just using them like security guards.
Yeah, I didn't like that at all. I think I mentioned that when Bryce was watching the episode with me here, and I really didn't like the fact that they were just on guard duty, like in the prison chambers there, where it's just you're just protecting a scientist. Like that's a job for the TK units who are being trained at that facility, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not commandos.
Really wasted.
Yeah, it did feel really wasted. It's like I like seeing them; they're cool, but like we don't need to see them like that, right?
Yeah, they got to be used for their purpose.
I'm also
so like when they were hunting the Bad Batch on the planet, that made sense,
right?
But so you're walking around security, not so much.
Yeah, I'm also kind of wondering whether or not we'll see the rest of Delta Squad, because we keep seeing Scorch all over the place. And we saw Scorch in the last season. We've seen Scorch in this season now with this episode. And I love Scorch. He's great. But like we haven't seen the rest of Delta Squad since the Clone Wars.
Well, Sev is dead.
Supposedly. That's Legends though, right? So like,
yeah,
you're right, because like if we're going with that storyline, like, you know, technically he died in like the game, right? So that's right. Before they even show up in the Clone Wars, because that's like. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think we can really kind of look at that as fact. Like, I think it's pretty likely that, you know, hopefully we'll see more of that squad, unless they're all dead for some reason. But, seeing Boss, Fixer, and Sev kind of come back. What would be really cool is if they're tasked with hunting down the Bad Batch. Yeah, you get a group of Republic commandos like hunting the Clone Force 99. You see them in action.
Is that too fan servicey?
I think it's the perfect kind of fan service. I think like
it sounds fun.
It sounds really cool. Yeah.
Who do you want hunting?
Yeah. Who would you go with?
To hunt them specifically.
Like bounty hunters, or?
Yeah, I would probably lean more towards bounty hunters.
Hmm.
All right, so it's Boba Fett teamed up with the Commandos.
Hear me
Now that's
out.
not fan service.
I figured out what I was going to say. So I think
Go ahead.
actually I'd like to give it maybe half a Pablo because I really did enjoy I think they were really able to make it a kind of scary at the start.
Yeah, I
When
was
they
actually
were,
gonna think of that too.
Yeah, and I think that was like
Alien.
and you know what? And then now that you've mentioned it, it kind of I think I talked to Josh about this too. It really reminded me of that mission in Republic Commando where you have to infiltrate that acclimator assault ship, and like everything's dead inside, and there's like it's the Trandoshans have like taken it over, and it really gave me that like scary feeling, and I really like that.
That's cool.
That's
the other thing I wanted to
vibes,
say, is I really enjoyed the fact that we're back on the like Omega storyline, and it's kind of focused on her because I feel like that is what makes the series interesting. Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting.
Totally agree.
a little
with that.
harsh.
Yeah.
No, all right, you've convinced me. I'll give it half a Pablo point too. Because those were the good parts. I forgot about the beginning of the episode, which was the alien kind of reference, which was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Once they revealed the alien, it was less interesting to me, which is kind of the opposite of Josh, which is kind of funny. Because like to me, it looked like in the small version, it had the same face as the alien from the original Alien films, but it had like this lizard body.
Yeah.
I find it crazy that we're on episode 11, and I'm just saying that now, that there's now something to do with Omega.
Yeah.
We're 11 episodes in.
I know. I think that's kind of the biggest issue I have with this show. Like so far.
long.
Yeah, like it's got some episodes that are really great, and then it just goes through phases of giving us episodes that are like, all right, really? Like, we gonna do this again?
Yeah.
Like,
It's something you see at a kid's show that has 24 episodes in a season.
Yeah, and this has only got
Whatever it
16.
is.
Yeah, we're only like 16 episodes and just north of like 20 something minutes, right? Like, it's nothing crazy. So I feel like if they really kind of just sat down and wrote this thing to have this just week to week ongoing like actual story that just keeps going with the Omega thing or with the whatever, like they could really pull out some good story arcs. We saw story arcs in Clone Wars last 4 episodes long at a time. Like that's a long story arc, and they were great. And 3 was like pretty normal by the end of the show. Pretty normal to have 3 episodes in a row that had one story arc. And I'm just kind of not cool with this show just going back to Clone Wars season 1 style, week to week, kind of like jobs.
One and done,
one and done story arcs that are just kind of burners that probably won't follow up later with anything. So,
Yeah, it feels very Monster of the Week, right? Like you could tune in any episode of the season and you wouldn't have missed anything.
Yeah. That being said, though, there is some things to like about this episode, and I still love the Bad Batch. It's still great, but I'm holding high hopes for the last couple episodes that we can get a good storyline. The next episode is called The Outpost, that comes out on Wednesday, which is March 8th. Which by the time this podcast premieres, it'll be about just over 24 hours until we can watch that. And Mandalorian season 3 episode 2 comes out on Wednesday as well. So. A lot more Star Wars this week, and I'm looking forward to chatting about it with you guys. Any last things to bring up before we wrap it up here?
Nope, that's it for me.
Alrighty. Blake, sir.
We got it all covered, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Cool. Well, quick notice to our listeners is check out the links in the description of this podcast episode for everything we mentioned earlier, as well as a link to YOUTINI's Book Madness, which they're doing right now on social media. They're running polls, putting book against book. They're basically getting like a public opinion of which is better. So the first couple of rounds have already kind of gone through. It was Lost Stars versus Death Troopers. Lost Stars won out. And then it was Ahsoka versus Ahsoka versus Lords of the Sith,
Death
and
Troopers
Ahsoka won out. High Republic Convergence versus the Republic Commando series, and the High Republic Convergence won. They did Thrawn Trilogy and Legends versus High Republic Path of Deceit, and Thrawn Trilogy won. And Leia, Princess of Alderaan versus The Courtship of Princess Leia and Leia, Princess of Alderaan 1. And the final section was Brotherhood versus Rebel Rising and Brotherhood 1. So we're going down the list, down the column. There's a huge column of first level kind of verses in the round 1, and then we'll do round 2. And you can take part by voting on the polls on Twitter, possibly on Instagram, but I've seen them on Twitter. That's where I do my votes. And the link in the description is to see the results of those
Who
of
picked
those
the
polls.
original list?
YOUTINI is putting this whole.
I would have put on there.
Yeah. YOUTINI is putting this whole thing together. I don't know what kind of not every Star Wars book is on here, so I don't know who picked the books to put on the list, but I imagine it's maybe some of their higher rated favorites. I would imagine maybe like the number 50 or whatever, top 50 or Star Wars books or whatever, and they're pitting them all against each other. Something.
I figured out my issue because there's a bunch of Star Wars books that are really good that should have been on there, but like 3/4 of them are by Timothy Zahn. So I guess they probably only wanted him to have one novel.
Yeah. I don't know.
Happened.
Maybe.
Also, Death Troopers, they shouldn't have put that against Lost Stars. Lost Stars is also good, but Death Troopers, I feel like should have got to another round. That's a really fun novel.
Yeah. I guess we'll see. I'm really looking forward to seeing what makes it far enough to be in the last 2, of course. But I'm really curious about the Darth Plagueis book versus Allegiance and Choices of One, which is the one that introduced Mara Jade, I think, wasn't it?
It's part of the Thrawn trilogy. Then
there's like spin-offs of the Thrawn trilogy. Yeah. So I'm kind of curious to see what happens there because those are some fan favorites in there. But yeah, all right, guys. Thanks for coming back on the podcast, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Anytime.
See you out there. Keep flying.
All right, thank you guys for tuning into the podcast. We always appreciate everyone tuning in and sharing the show with a friend. If you want to help us out at all, you can send this podcast to a friend and drop a review. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, you can leave a review there. It really helps us out, helps the algorithms, helps people find the Star Wars Escape Pod podcast among 4,000 other Star Wars podcasts on the internet. So drop a 5-star, hit a review, and that would be awesome. You can contact us at swescapepodcast@gmail.com. You can send a voice memo there, and we'll even play it on the show. So if you have a question for us or a response to something, we love hearing from our audience. You can also reply to our tweets and follow us on Instagram and Twitter with the handle at SW Escape Podcast. You can find us on YouTube with the handle at SW Escape Podcast and subscribe there. And feel free to drop a comment. And don't forget those links in the description down below. We always put the links down there. If there's any upcoming things, any pieces of news or things that we talked about, we always link it down there. So you can catch that as well. Check out thechallenge.com by YOUTINI that we just brought up. You can vote for your favorite Star Wars books to make their way up the ranks by following them on Twitter. And I forget their handle, but again, links in the description below. And you can check our Swells out. Join the Discord server. The Swells, they're little previews of our episodes. We try and do one of those every week to give you a preview of what we've done. And looking forward to upcoming episodes for The Mandalorian, The Bad Batch, chatting with Blake, Bryce, and Kirk, and more people in the future. Thank you guys again. May the Force be with you. And we'll see you in the next episode of Star Wars Escape Pod.
No more.